All right, we're live. So welcome back to Dapp University. So today we're going to talk about something that's a big deal for Web 3.0 and what you need to understand about this. All right, we're talking about why Web 3.0 is important in the first place and how it just got a big upgrade. Okay, we're going to look at that. We're going to look at a lot of other news updates that have happened in the space since our live streams that we did yesterday. Again, we do these live streams Monday through Friday on this channel about 9:30 a.m. Central Time. Just subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications whenever we go live. You'll find out about those. We're going to answer some of your questions, look at the crypto markets, and a lot more. So if you're new around here, hey, I'm Gregory, and on this channel, I turn you into a blockchain master. So if that's something that you're interested in, then smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm and subscribe to this channel. And if you want to learn how to become a blockchain master step-by-step start to finish, then head on over to dappuniversity.com/bootcamp to get started today. Last but not least, there's lots of scammers down in the comment section below. Just ignore them. I'll never give you my phone number or ask you to invest with me. And of course, as always, like nothing I'm saying is financial advice. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into this. I guess before we do, my normal camera, again, has decided to develop a mind of its own, become a sentient being, and decide it wants to take a day off. So it's not working. So I'm on my webcam here. So, bear with me for the ad hoc setup here. But we got people jumping in the chat. So we got Josh, we got Brad, Technically Fundamental, Francis, Culture Highs, Mark, Brad, Justin, sorry, the chat's moving on me. I can't read them. Automatic Beats, Anthony, Dustin, Jay. Welcome. So let's talk about Web 3.0. All right, it just got a big upgrade. And so before we even think about the upgrade, let's talk about what Web 3.0 is in the first place. So this is a brand new internet, powered by blockchain technology that gives you all the benefits of blockchain technology, like censorship resistance, transparency, trust minimization. Okay. As opposed to the web that we use today, which is more Web 2.0. So web's been through this journey, this life cycle of migration from Web 1.0 to Web 2.0, and we're in this transition to Web 3.0. So if Web 1.0 is basically the first version of the internet where, you could go to websites that had information on them, but they weren't incredibly interactive. You weren't like getting on social networks and adding friends. You weren't really like using social media on your phone with mobile apps or anything like that. So that was defined the transition from Web 1.0 to Web 2.0 with these more interactive websites, very rich web experience, okay? And now Web 3.0 is characterized by an internet of blockchains, internet of value, trustlessness, decentralization, and also basically, changing the models to where when people participate with websites, they become more owners of those ecosystems rather than basically platforms just owning everything and then extracting value from the individuals themselves. Okay, so that's the vision of Web 3.0, where this whole space is headed. We have, parts of Web 3.0 here right now, and we're, in this transition to building this ecosystem out. So every time you use a decentralized finance application or DeFi application, that's part of Web 3.0. That's the internet of value. You've got cryptocurrency on a blockchain. You've got a website that's talking directly to it. Even better if that website served off IPFS, because then you have as few central points of failure as possible, okay? Every time you buy an NFT, you are participating in Web 3.0. And the long-term vision for Web 3.0 is to take everything that's on the internet now and basically decentralize it and make it more, blockchain-esque than it is today, and what the benefits of that are. I'm going to talk about a major benefit of that right now, which is actually with domain names, okay? So I don't know if you've ever had to purchase a domain name in the past or go through that process, but it can be quite a grueling process, and I'm going to explain why here in a minute. And this process is getting better, and we're actually taking a big leap forward with Web3 at decentralizing this aspect of the internet, okay, of web as we see it today. So I'll bring up the first story I want to talk about here on my screen today and kind of explain this. So ENS is the Ethereum name service, okay? So if you've been on Twitter or anywhere online and you see somebody with that has like a name that says .eth in their handle, like you can see this ENS.eth, whatever your name is. Let's just find somebody in the chat here. I'll just take a random name like, so Lee Robert was the last person who just commented in the chat. So let's say you had leerobert.eth, right? Basically, the whole idea is that you could have an Ethereum address that now has a human-readable name rather than just this really weird string of characters that you normally see whenever you're looking at a blockchain address. Maybe you sent Bitcoin to a wallet before and you see this really funny string of characters with just letters and numbers, or maybe you've seen an Ethereum address that has like a 0x and then it has a bunch of characters after it. That's really hard to remember. If you're say, hey, I want to send you some money, well, here's my Ethereum address. What if you just said it out loud? It would just be incomprehensible to most people. So that's where ENS comes into play. Is basically you can take Ethereum addresses and give them human readable names, and now you have an identification behind that, all right, and it can resolve to it. And so this works a lot like DNS does in the first place, but it actually decentralizes it and puts it on blockchain, okay? And so there's lots of different use cases for this, but one thing that's really cool is we just saw an update that's been a long time coming for ENS that actually allows DNS domain owners to import it for use on ENS, okay? So you can actually take whatever your website is. Let's keep using Lee as an example here. So Lee Robert, let's just say LeeRobert.com. I'm just making this up off the top of my head. But if he owned LeeRobert.com, he could just wrap it and basically put it in use with ENS, okay? Which is pretty crazy. Let's talk about the scope beyond this and why I think domain registration or DNS. That's what DNS stands for, domain name service. Okay, that's what DNS is. This is the layer of the internet where basically, like, anytime you go to websites like YouTube.com, there's an entire layer of the internet that's responsible for registering, YouTube.com, and then pointing that to a different IP address where you actually access the web service on top of it. That layer is called DNS. So you go to YouTube.com, and the DNS actually resolves to an IP address, which is the actual gateway, the entry point where you would look at YouTube.com. In a very simple world, that would be just the web server that contains the entire website, but YouTube's way more complex than that, but that's the basics. And so basically, this top layer of the internet, DNS, is incredibly centralized, it's incredibly slow, and it's full of middlemen that make it a nightmare to deal with. So I don't know if you ever purchased a domain name through a registrar before and had to wait for the DNS to propagate. It's always, it says it's supposed to take, 48 hours or something like that. Sometimes it takes longer. And really it should be instant, all right? And that's one thing that blockchain solves. Is basically if you have a domain name and you just activate it, it should really be an instant process. And that's why you talk about fast settlement in DeFi. That's one big benefit of decentralized finance technology. Once the transaction's settled on the blockchain, it should be done and you should know that you have the funds. It's the same way with domain names, okay? So similarly, if you're actually trying to transfer domain names between users, there's a huge amount of centralization here as well. And I'm actually going to bring up an anecdote about something that I personally dealt with relatively recently on the grand scheme of things around DNS. So I was actually going in to buy a domain name for a project, okay? And it was thought of as a premium domain name, okay? So basically, it had keywords in it that were very attractive for lots of people, and so it was kind of expensive. And so I went through domain name registrar and basically purchased it. And, after the sale, this was not clearly advertised at the beginning, after the sale, it said, well, guess what? Your domain name it lives at a different registrar, and we have to wait for it to transfer into your account. It's well, great. Because most of the times when you go buy a domain name, you have access to the actual DNS records itself pretty fast, and you can just wire it up and point it to your website, and you can, have your website running in a matter of days. That's what we were hoping to do in this situation. But when I contacted support for the domain name registrar, they said, well, this could take up to a month to transfer in from the other registrar. I'm sitting here thinking, this is absolutely nuts, okay? Because there's no reason that this should live at another middleman's, office, basically. You don't have to talk to one another, to mark up the value of this domain name and extract, value from this and just, put an insane amount of fat into this situation. It's absolutely ridiculous. If this was on blockchain, you could just buy it and it would settle instantly, okay? And what's even worse is we're we'll just wait, and then we continued on with the project, all right, while we were waiting for this domain name to be transferred. And then a couple months later, we went back to go actually set up the domain name and point it to the website. And we realized that we didn't actually own it. And so this entire time we've been moving on with this project, assuming that we owned the domain name. We went back and checked the email, and the registrar had sent us an email saying, oh, well, we couldn't actually transfer that domain name. sorry, we refunded you like a month ago. So it was like, this is absolutely ridiculous. The registrar did not advertise on their front end that it would take over a month to transfer the domain name. And then once we bought it, they were like, oh, well, yeah, it's going to take a month. And then a month passed, and they didn't really clearly alert us that, well, sorry, we couldn't actually transfer that. So here's your money back. All the while we had named an entire project something and gotten it ready based on the assumption that we own the domain name. And if you have blockchain technology, you would be able to just like buy it and instantly know that you have it, or at least in a matter of like a minute or something like that. It's absolutely insane. So, DNS is something that can be completely disrupted by blockchain. And personally, I really hope it does for reasons like this. I mean, some of these domain name registrars are notorious for just being, really just low value, kind of rent extracting middlemen who price gouge things. And I'm definitely not a fan. So this is an area of blockchain that I'm super excited for disruption. And it looks like we're having a good step forward for something like that. So let's see if we got any questions here. Yeah, somebody says they hate intermediary services. Yeah, totally. Okay, so let's look at a couple other things. So the next thing I want to talk about is let's go ahead and check on the crypto prices, because that's something I see people talking about in the chat here. We'll go ahead and take a look. Sorry, my normal setup's a little messed up today. So let's look at TradingView. All right, so Bitcoin price. So right now, we're back above $48,000. I know people have been getting a little bit freaked out the past couple days because Bitcoin's been, kind of trying to test support of its 200-day moving average. I'm not really worried. Like I've been talking about in these streams, like for me to flip bearish on this, like we would have to either have a really fast, sharp correction, or something where we like breach these and then like we see a longer trend downward for an extended period of time. I think a lot of what's happening right now is really just noise. Okay, for me, the fact that we survived all this, are seeing a lot of positive momentum forward, especially on the fundamentals of the space, makes me think that I'm cautiously bullish in this scenario. And this is a situation where fundamentals are really at the core of my thesis here. So we actually saw a pretty interesting take on the Bitcoin price. I'll pull it up here. So this was the Fidelity's Understanding Bitcoin. Okay, so this is a report put out by Fidelity, Understanding Bitcoin, where they have the stock to flow charts inside of there, and they actually are showing people like the S-curve adoption for different technologies. Okay, so I talked about in this videos a lot, like that blockchain technology is growing in adoption at a rate twice the internet. If you account for the same number of users. So however many users we have in blockchain right now, if you take that period in history and you overlap with the same number using the internet, blockchain is outpacing it by twice the rate. Oops, here it is. And so you can see they've published the S-curve of adoptions, and they post the stock to flow model inside of here, which, by 2023, we're looking at firmly over $100,000 Bitcoin. All at 2035, getting close to $100 million. It's pretty crazy. So this is inside the Fidelity report. So we can check on the ETH prices as well. Let's just pull up the ETH chart. Let's pull up the Coinbase chart. The same sort of thing. Honestly, if the crypto markets decide to leap forward, ETH looks pretty coiled in the sense that if we do get more bullish from here, I could see it making a significant move and potentially breaking its all-time high pretty soon. Now, again, some of that's going to be at the whims of the market. What do we decide to do in the short to midterm? But we're really not that far away from ETH making a new all-time high in the first place, okay? And I actually saw a pretty interesting kind of idea about this, a good thread that we can look at to kind of back some of this up. So somebody's saying is nobody, of course, this is croissant. Some people might not take this very seriously because you're literally looking at a picture of a piece of bread on the internet talking about this. But hey, here we are. This is crypto. So as anybody seeing this, there's so many things lining up for ETH. It's hard for me not to expect a massive run-up in the next few weeks. So ETH is well on its way to becoming a multi-trillion-dollar asset. Let's discuss. So DeFi TVL, so total value locked in DeFi. Ever since the beginning of the year, total value of DeFi has gone exponential. On January 1st, 2021, the TVL was a modest $16 billion, and today it's $85 billion. Yeah, totally. So I've been talking about this. I made a prediction in January that I thought we'd see $100 billion locked in DeFi by the end of the year. I think we're on track to do that simply because of price appreciation in the assets that are already locked in DeFi. So ETH and smart contracts, due to the hour explosion of DeFi, the amount of Ether placed in smart contracts has similarly gone to all-time highs. Right now, it's 26% of all ETH is in smart contracts at the moment. And some of that's going to be for staking on Ethereum 2.0, but that's absolutely insane. So developers, ETH is growing at a pace faster than Bitcoin in terms of active developers. It's not even close. It's Q3 of 2019. ETH has averaged a gain of over 300 plus devs a month. The ecosystem undeniably attracting some of the world's best innovators. So hopefully that's a lot of you watching this channel. I think these stats might be a little bit old, but let me just look at it. This is actually updated April 2021. So I've seen this chart floating around before from Electric Capital, but it was older stats. But I think this stands to reason. Like, this is still probably reasonably accurate. The ETH, like I thought on this channel, ETH is by far the biggest developer ecosystem, the most active, and we're seeing that reflected here in these statistics. So the burn EIP 1559 has been nothing short of astounding. Introduced fluctuating burn to ETH, so we've burned an insane amount of ETH, more than 102,000. Staked ETH is now upward of $23 billion. 6% of all ETH is being staked. Right, there is some overlap in that statistic in the ETH and smart contracts because everything that's being staked right now is technically locked in smart contracts in ETH 1.0. But yeah, there's more. So I won't belabor every single point here. DeFi users are on an exponential trend upward. Stable coins are exploding. Network use, which one is settling more value? ETH is settling $24.75 billion a day. Bitcoin's only selling $8.4 billion. Ethereum is settling over 3 times the amount of value. Spawn exchanges, ETH is going down like crazy. ETH issuance is going crazy. Yeah, it's absolutely nuts. And so those are the fundamentals that we're talking about for seeing an ETH price explosion soon. And I think that makes sense. Especially, like I said, I think the crypto market has to kind of decide, so does it confidently want to be bullish? And if it does, I think we could see a move to new all-time high on ETH pretty soon on the grand scheme of things. Some of my questions here. Somebody says 30x ETH long this morning, looking good. Braver than me. Somebody says Electric Capital is hiring blockchain dudes, by the way. Maybe they meant devs. Yeah, totally. Will fiat currency collapse if everybody buys crypto? That's a good question. I don't think we're going to have to worry about that problem for a long time. I mean, fiat currency is collapsing by itself without the aid of crypto. Uh, but I don't, that's an interesting question, but I think it's entertaining. Something that's a little too extreme to be realistic anytime soon. Any news from Fed's Powell will speak today? I don't have any news on it. Okay, let's look at something else here. So this, well, we'll look at a layer 2 update. So I made a video, I think it was yesterday, talking about the layer 2 space heating up, but we have more news from Optimism. All right, Optimism and Arbitrum seem to be definitely the leading competitors right now for layer 2s in terms of optimistic roll-up technology on Ethereum. That's where a lot of the innovation is happening. So cool thing from yesterday, custom token bridging is now supported on an optimistic Ethereum gateway near you. So now the whole idea is you can take any token that you want to and bridge it over to the Optimism environment and have a copy of it on the layer 2 up there. Okay, so you can send it around. Yesterday we saw about I think it's called Hop Finance. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. But basically, the idea that you can bypass the long withdrawal times in Optimism. That's one of the downsides of optimistic roll-up technology. There's a long delay period if you want to withdraw. Sometimes it's like 7 days. And so that's a protocol that allows you to sort of bypass that. There's going to be some trust involved, all that type of stuff. But that was a big thing we talked about yesterday. And then also now we have this where you can bridge arbitrary ERC20 tokens over to the Optimism environment. Okay, so actually we're bringing this up that I saw on my Twitter yesterday, which is something that I think everybody needs to be careful of. So I saw this tweet actually float around from Buster Rhymes, who's been, exploring crypto quite a bit. We've kind of seen his tweets float around. See a lot of people that I follow reply to him and all this type of stuff. And he was in a tweet thread where he was talking about, if you're just curious about NFT artists, like, hey, if you're into NFTs, you're an artist, DM me. And then of course you have people come in and say, oh, you're just into a phase, this is kind of arrogant BS. It's like, hey, what's going on? I'm so confused. And then they call it an S coins. I'm trying to keep it friendly for the show here. And he's saying, why are you so hostile? This is to discourage people asking legit questions in the effort of learning. And this is one of my least favorite parts of crypto. And it's the reason I tweeted out yesterday. So basically I was like, there's a lot of this in crypto, unfortunately. There's also a lot of this in regular programming communities. Like just, if you were going to learn programming anywhere, you have a lot of people who are just trying to, shame you for asking basic questions. And that's the whole point, is I want to keep this place a safe place to ask questions. That's one of the reasons we do these live streams where you can ask questions. We do these Monday through Friday on this channel. And it's like, that's the only way we're all going to make it. If we can ask questions and figure out what we don't know. Because everybody really starts from somewhere. You know what I mean? And the only way to get out of this is to ask questions, okay? So, saying some people flex wealth, other people flex knowledge. Crypto tends to attract both, so don't let either, turn you away. So, it's pretty ridiculous. I hate it because, especially when people are trying to get in the space and then they try to, push them out like that. It's just not good. Now, the caveat for you as a beginner, and this is one reason I want to talk about in the stream, is when you're asking questions, you also want to make sure that you're asking good questions and that you're respecting the person who possesses the information that you're trying to get. Okay. So the caveat here is people love to help other people who want to help themselves. So if you're trying to learn something, especially if you're trying to learn something difficult, it's best to just try to figure it out for yourself first and get to the point where you can't figure it out anymore and then ask for help and then prove that you've done some of the work to make it happen. And that's assuming that you're on the low end of the totem pole. If you're on the high end of the totem pole, it doesn't really matter. You can sort of ask questions, whatever you want to, and people will gladly answer you. But if you're a beginner, you're trying to get into space, you're like starting from square one, nobody has a real reason to listen to you. There's a really good it's really good to start trying to help yourself first, because people love to help others who are interested in helping themselves. Okay, because it's easier, right? It's really hard to help somebody who just like is just lazy and just wants you to do everything. Okay, and then also like when you're trying to ask questions as a beginner, you don't ever want to be entitled to an answer. All right, the person who's trying to help you, you're not entitled to their help, and so you don't want to act that way. You don't want to demand an answer. Okay, so you always want to be thankful for the person who's decided to give you their attention and impart their knowledge on you, because at the end of the day, that person could really to like charge you money for the knowledge or something, but they're not, right? Like they're helping you. They're doing it out of goodwill. And so you always need to be thankful and appreciative of that, because the last thing you want to do is come in like, well, I need to know this stuff, so tell me everything I need to know. And then when it doesn't make sense, you don't sit down and ponder it. You just like, well, you just force, like, keep asking them questions. Like, nobody really wants to help somebody like that. It's going to wear on their patience. And so you have to keep that in balance, okay? You want to keep it a safe place to ask questions, but you also want to take self-initiative to try to answer your own questions, especially if you're a beginner, before you, like, hound somebody for an answer and become entitled. Somebody says, that's why I'm not asking at the bottom. I'll learn along the way. So you can still ask questions at the bottom. Here's the thing, especially if they're really easy to answer. Like, it's fine. Just really simple beginner questions. I'll give you an example of something that's not good. Basically, like, if you're particularly on like coding, for example, like if you've gone in and you're trying to like fix a problem in your coding journey, but it's pretty clear that you haven't done any effort to try to like figure it out for yourself, then like a lot of times people won't want to really help you, just because you have to present yourself as someone who's going to actually take the help and do something with it. And most people who are just sitting there not doing anything, because here's the thing, if you give them the help, then they're just going to ask again. They're just going to ask again. They're just going to ask again. And not actually be help. Your help isn't. People are less likely to help when they feel like it's actually going to be effective. I'll put it that way, and it's going to just end up being more of a headache for them than kind of paying off and actually helping the person. An easy way to do that is just ask out of a spirit of, humility and thankfulness, not entitlement, and typically it's going to be okay. Okay, so let's look at, so you had another question here in the chat. Somebody says C's get degrees. That's right. So let's see here. We'll do one more question, then we'll roll out for today. Let's see here. Somebody says, does Dapp University only teach Solidity? So Solidity is the primary skill that we focus on. We also teach JavaScript. I mean, Solidity is the reason why is Solidity is the highest, in-demand skill really in blockchain right now, because that's the big bottleneck for most companies and most applications that want to launch a blockchain-based solution, because Solidity works on Ethereum, where a vast majority of the innovation and activity is happening in blockchain. And then a lot of people who are trying to compete with Ethereum and run EVM-compatible blockchains, they want to reduce the friction for developers creating applications on their ecosystems. And so a lot of times they'll just make their environment EVM-compatible, where you can take Ethereum smart contracts and then put them on there. Or sometimes they'll just have like special compilers or transpilers, whatever you say, where you can take your app and then convert it for their ecosystem without doing a ton of code changes, because they want to reduce the friction for bootstrapping their ecosystem and launch new things. So if you know Solidity, you're going to provide value in any of those environments. It's an insanely high in-demand skill. Okay, and for that reason, based on supply and demand economics, it's a highly paid skill. It's one of the highest paid skills in tech. And I do teach JavaScript quite a bit as a way to interact with Solidity contracts, with the website, through writing tests, through deployments, all that type of stuff. You can use other programming languages to do that. You can use like Python, for example. We teach JavaScript because it's one of the easiest ones to learn and has the most application beyond. It's basically, you only have to learn 2 programming languages. So you learn Solidity, you learn JavaScript. You can do a lot with JavaScript. You can build a website, you can write tests, you can write scripts, you can do all kinds of stuff. Okay. So those are the 2 primary ones we teach, but we focus quite a bit on Solidity as the core skill, because at the end of the day, you can always enhance your JavaScript knowledge of the resources, but we do teach you a significant amount to become proficient in a professional workplace. But it's really hard to, enhance your Solidity knowledge elsewhere, because there's hardly any good resources out there. All right, everybody, that's all I got for today. As always, smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. That really helps these videos out so that more people can learn about blockchain. And if you're as fast at this technology as I am, you want to get your hands dirty, how can you get started today? Well, you can go to my YouTube homepage. You can find my free courses there. They're like Udemy courses, but they're totally free. And if you like those and you want to take the next step, or hey, maybe you want to take a master shortcut entirely, I can become a blockchain master step-by-step, start to finish, over at dappuniversity.com/bootcamp. You don't have to be an expert to get started today. I've helped people with zero coding experience become real-world blockchain developers in a matter of months. So that's all I've got. And until next time, thanks for watching Dapp.